Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Today's video is all about the visit to the Mathers Foundation that I did on Saturday. So I'm going to put together the clips that I made and the software that I use to edit my videos, which is called Power Director. I've been using it many years and I probably use about 10% of its facilities. During this video we're going to push that up to possibly 15 or 20% of the facilities, which means quite a few of the facilities I'm about to use I've never used before. I hope it looks good when I finish because it's a bit of a faff, but then I only go to visit the Mathers Foundation once a year. They hold some open days during the beginning of the year and that's your lot. They do go to shows and put on absolutely wonderful displays, but that's a different thing altogether. But my visits to orchid nurseries and my visits to shows, the videos I've done on those events in the past, have all had a certain style to them, which is basically me wandering along holding the camera, stopping on certain plants that I actually like, and adding some music to get rid of the hubbub noise that you get at those sort of events. That's been the style. And enough people have commented that that's all very well listening to nice music and looking at pretty blooms, but we don't know what they are. You know, it would be nice to have a bit of information. I know you can't always show the name of the plants because often the tags are back to front, and if there are any there. I mean, if you think at the Mathers Foundation, most of the plants haven't got a tag that's anything worthwhile because it's a number in a catalogue. Everything's on a huge database and it's got a number. So the names of the plants are not necessarily available even if I wanted them. Yes, so this video is a complete new style for this type of event. Not been done before, and as a consequence it may or may not be liked. But I personally think, given the effort I'm about to put into it, it will be a major improvement using some facilities. One thing I will have to say, Hannah, my daughter, who was with me, took a lot of photos on her phone, as she often does at these events when she comes, to get some nice close-in shots and things like that. And I usually use them in the videos. When we got back here, she was transferring them via email onto, so that I could get at them off of her phone, and she said, these pictures don't look right, Dad. And I had a look at the first email that arrived on my laptop, and I said, yeah, they're not very clear, are they? They're not your normal standard by any means. And then we found out that at some point she'd spilt some drink and it had got on the lenses. So her camera lenses were fogged, so none of her pictures are usable. When she had her, she had a sloppy round the house type top on at the time, and she just sort of rubbed the lens like that and got a big brown mark. What on earth is that? Backtracking, it looked like it was some hot chocolate that she'd spilt on it a while back and hadn't noticed that it had gone. It also got inside her case but didn't do any harm. Yeah, so unfortunately her photos, they look brilliant to look at, but they're not usable basically. They've got a tinge to them that shouldn't be there and a fuzzy effect that shouldn't be there, so unfortunate. So we'll have to rely on the clips that I've taken basically, and the work that I'm going to do on those clips to replace the photos I would have used from Hannah, which is a bit of a faff, but again, I haven't got anything else to do all day today. I've got no watering to do, so anyway, so that's the principle. It's all new, facilities I've never used before, and I hope when it comes together it flows nicely and is not jerky or watchable. I hope it's watchable because it is a totally new style. I hope it works okay. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, let's make a start. But before we really get going, I'm going to take this opportunity to just pause and explain what the Mathers Foundation is all about, and it'll be a brief explanation. You can go to their website and there's more to read there if you wish, but the place we visited is a working nursery. It is not designed in any shape or form to take hordes of people in any one go. Aisles can be narrow, floors can be soaking wet, there's all sorts of things that are not conducive to even being open to the public. But on these open days they let people in a controlled manner to have a look round and explain what they're up to. Now I've stopped on this bit. As you enter, if you go there on a visit, you come into a reception type area which has got some tables and chairs and a serving area, and they always look after you. You've got teas, you've got coffees, cakes and things on the tables. You can relax in between bits of the tour or after the tour, or before the tour starts even. So you're welcomed in at that point, and David and Jill sort of introduced the foundation and everything. Basically this foundation hasn't been running long. It's been running about 5 years, not a long time. A lot of the plants were originally from McBean's and from the Eric Young Foundation, which is on the island of Jersey in the English Channel. So that gave them a start basically, and over time, not that long really, they've acquired quite a lot of other collections. So whereas they initially started off with mainly Oncidiums, predominantly the Odontoglossum style Oncidiums, now reclassified obviously, and Cymbidiums, that was their mainstay, but since then they've got quite a lot of other types of orchids in, some of which you'll see. Right, this is the area to the left of the reception area, and it consists of a couple of very long benches, the whole length of this particular glass house, and this lower bench here is their seedling area. So they produce seed, they produce their own crosses, they produce seed, they're flasked. They may get flasks in from other places, I'm not sure, but certainly that's the starting point, is the hybridization seeds, and don't forget the line progress. This is where individual species are improved through line breeding. You might not have come across this expression. This is basically, you take two species, produce seed and produce a load of seedlings, get them up to flowering, and then pick the best ones, yeah, and redo the cross. So you're working with the same species all the time. You're not introducing anything else, you're just using the species, but you're weeding out the weedy ones, if you see what I mean, keeping the most vigorous, the strongest, the ones with the best colour, the ones with the best shape, and in doing so, and then using those to produce more seed, you improve the line breeding. So we'll come on to that again later, because there's another aspect to that as a consequence of over collecting, but we'll come back to that. So the foundation's primary function in this country is to keep orchids in cultivation, improve them, introduce new crosses, and make plants closer to a house plant, shall we say. So get rid of some of the fussiness, improve the blooming, make it more assured, and make the plants sturdier, stronger, less susceptible to disease, all that sort of stuff. So an improvement program and a hybridization program to produce new crosses, which they're very good at, and we shall see quite a few of those as we go along. So this area, when Jim started his talk, I didn't really join in with the talk because I've heard it several times before, and we had rather a lot of people there in one go. This long aisle, Jim normally stops halfway and has a chat. he had to go right down to the far end, and people piled into the aisle, and some people couldn't get in the aisle because there were too many people, in my opinion. But nonetheless, that's where we started the tour effectively. And just as a matter of interest for future reference, it took, Hannah said, 6 or 7 minutes for the people in that aisle to get out. Jim was trapped effectively. He couldn't get out to continue the tour until the people had moved out of the way, and it took that long. So, you know, as I said, it is a working nursery, not designed for the public. This is the result of seedlings coming out of flasks and being potted up. That's what you're looking at here. And you can see the little tiny strip lights across the top of the bench, and the trays underneath with all the seedlings in. Jim made a fantastic comment as he was talking about the seedlings and the types of lighting and everything like that. He said, I don't know what we're going to do with them when they all grow up. Well, think about it. Tiny little seeds in sort of like 2-inch pots. You know, they're going to get bigger. Well, one would hope. So anyway, this is, as I said, it's a working nursery, and this is the start point. Working bench there. And the other thing that the Mathers Foundation have got on the go is they have a piece of land that is effectively a reserve. I can't remember whether it's Ecuador or Peru, but it's over that way somewhere, South America. It's a large area of pristine rainforest that they are preserving with the orchids within, basically. So this is a conservation project in situ, and I'll come back to that later because there's a story there as well. So those orchids are being grown in situ, but there are many other places where the orchids are growing, specifically around that region, in that area, shall we say, large though it is, where the rainforest is just getting destroyed and orchids are getting lost. So they're being lost in the wild. So part of this project is to maintain those species in cultivation so that they're not lost forever. Yeah, that's important. Right, so let's moving along quickly. So this is the long bench, as I call it. The people aren't there at the moment. I had to wait for them to get out of the way. Now on the top shelf you've got an assortment. There's some lovely Miltoniopsis here. My favourite Miltoniopsis, anything that looks like this, the yellow, I really like those a lot. There's a bit of all sorts along this section. Literally it's the seedlings that have grown on and then they're brought up to the top shelf. That's a beauty, isn't it? Absolutely stunning. And again, running along underneath, all the little seedlings. These are the seedlings that are progressing along the top. And you notice I'm walking permanently. Now this was Lynn's favourite orchid at the time. Let's have a closer look. That's what it's called. Let's see if I can get a nice blown up close-up. So there you go. That is a stunning little Oncidium, absolutely stunning, but emphasis on the small. It's a very, very small bloom, and especially relative to the plant size, because the plants, although smaller than a lot of others, it's not like a true miniature as such, but gorgeous little bloom there, absolutely stunning. And for those of you who don't know, I mentioned Lynn frequently. This was a visit for the Wessex Orchid Society. Lynn is chairman and a good friend and a fellow YouTuber. She has her own channel as well, so she runs a channel. She doesn't post very often, but the channel is just Lynn Smith, basically her name. And she's got some stunning plants, but if I mention Lynn, that's who I mean anyway. She manages to get in one of the clips later on, and I know she won't mind, otherwise I would have to have removed her. So anyway, that was one that I thought was worth a pause. So moving along, this is just literally, in a lot of cases, this is a sea of green. These are the seedlings being grown on. And as you can see, I'm only halfway down. There's an awful lot down the other side as well. So this is their coming out of the flask and growing on area. As I head back up this side, we come to an area where some of these plants are actually for sale. You'll see some price tags in places. I wouldn't look too closely at them. So a fair amount in this area were actually for sale. So that's that area. That's to the left as you come in the door, so you could call it just off reception. So that's that one. Plione house, or Plione house, however you want to say it. This is a national collection. It was inherited. The person who collected these plants together and produced many of these hybrids passed the whole collection on to Mathers, and this is it. I'm just panning around now. This is a separate area. These are cool growers. These can go down to almost freezing. They're terrestrials and they're kept separate, and some of these are incredibly valuable. Anyway, this is a national collection, and it's now housed at Mathers, separate housing here. These plants are effectively like bulbs. They have a tuberous bulb type thing underground, and they produce their flower in the spring, late winter, early spring, and then the leaves come out afterwards, and then they die right down. And depending on the actual species, the bulb may die as well, but it will have produced new bulblets around the outside. So that's how it sort of progresses. Right, let's have a closer look at some of these plants. They are stunning. They're not to everybody's liking, I must admit. They are cold growers, so you have to have an environment that suits. And they are terrestrials. They are bulbs or bulblets. They grow underground and they can rot relatively easily. You've got to look after them. They've got to have a decent media. But they multiply readily if they're happy. So you can get a tray full like this relatively quickly. They do multiply quite readily. So there we go. That's the Plione collection. Right, moving on to another area within the nursery. This is a relatively small but a nice collection of Masdevallias. There's some nice hybrids in amongst here, some nice colours, and these are all in a separate section basically. This Ignea was absolutely beautiful. This is Hannah's favourite orchid. So yeah, a few of those to look at. Now we're moving on into the Cymbidium house. I waited for everybody else to move on to the bulbophyllums, which is in a separate area, so that I had free access to film in here basically, without trying to manoeuvre around sort of 30 odd people. But anyway, this Cymbidium breeding program is running along very well. They've got some smashing hybrids. They look for larger flowers, better shape, and more compact. Yeah, so it is a program of improvement effectively, as well as producing new hybrids. They're trying to improve the strain of Cymbidiums so that they're more reliable, bloom better, more compact spikes, not all spread out, all that sort of thing. So it's quite a program basically. I'm just whizzing along here. These are hybrids basically. Most of them have no names on them. They have a number, a catalogue number. So, don't ask what they are because I don't know. But there's some smashing plants in here and some gorgeous blooms. On the far side, the bit you can't see, are their cut flower plants. These are huge. They're like in dustbins. They're absolutely massive. They get fed and watered 5 times a day. They're absolutely massive, and they're solely there to produce the biggest and most numerous spikes possible for the cut flower trade. So it's a totally different sort of enterprise to these. Not as a species. You don't see many, not in this house, anyway, not in the Cymbidium house. But you can see the variety of colours here, and as I said, the hybridisation program for Cymbidiums is geared up to stable spikes that are self-supporting with well spaced out blooms of a good shape, good colour and on a nice stable plant that doesn't take over the whole world. In other words, the giants are trying to be reduced down. So nice sort of medium-sized plants. So it's an active program. It's constantly being worked on. New hybrids being produced. And as you can see, there are places where there is a sea of green. Yeah, these will be the ones that probably flower for the first time next year. Some of these blooms are pretty large. I mean, that is a large bloom even for a Cymbidium. And then on the end here, like an idiot, I didn't find out what these were, but they're lovely little orchids. They look to me like some sort of terrestrial, looking at the leaves and the way those shoots are coming out of the ground. But because everybody moved on into the bulbophyllum area and I was left here on my own, and these plants haven't got any names, they've just got a number, I'm not quite sure what they were. But they were very attractive, and I've left them in even though I don't necessarily know what they're called. So be it, as they say. And this is just a quick look at one of the other areas where the Cymbidiums are. These shelving units move so they can widen and narrow the aisles. I think they can almost close them off. This was a very narrow aisle. Nobody else used it, only me. They were guided into the nice wide one rather than this one. But I thought, as everybody else had left this part of the nursery, I'd have a walk down here and just film what was in this area. They do have some absolutely marvellous Cymbidium. I mean, look at the colour of this one. It's absolutely stunning. Again, no names, you know. The names are in the catalogue out here in the nursery where they grow them on and divide them and all that sort of thing. It's a working nursery. These aren't here for show. They're also not for sale, don't forget. This is not that type of nursery. It's a foundation. Everything here is for research. Right, we're moving on now to my main place of interest. My main reason for visiting the Mathers Foundation is the now called Oncidiums, what I like to think of as the Odontoglossum house. These are probably one of my favourite type of orchids. I don't have many. The problem being, where I used to live, you know, these are cool growers. These don't like heat. And they can be fussy as well. So I didn't have any or many at the other place because it was just too warm. Now that I'm here and I'm growing much cooler, I'm happy to get some in, and I have got some and they seem to be doing okay. I will get more as and when the opportunity arises. I do have two of the Mathers Foundation Odonts that I got at Wisley last year. And they're in bloom currently, so I've managed to grow them on, produce a new bulb, mature it and get a flower spike on both of them, so they're okay. They don't look quite as good as Mathers versions, but this isn't a nursery. This is just my conservatory, so it's a different thing altogether. So we'll have a look at some of their wonderful Odontoglossums. I could spend hours and hours in this place looking at these plants. Unfortunately, the people were in there while I was trying to film, so I've had to be very careful not to get faces in. Hannah got in there, and she won't mind. Well, she probably will, but she don't get a choice. So Hannah's in there. I don't think she knows, but she may do if she watches the video. And Lynn managed to get in there as well, and I know Lynn won't mind. You know, she appears in her own videos, so she obviously doesn't mind being in a video. So yes, we'll just have a look through. I'm not going to know the names of all of these, but you know, we'll just have a look through as I manage to try and film without getting people in the videos. So this is the sort of start of the sequence, Hannah lurking in the background, and the variety of colours that they produced are absolutely stunning. And these almost look like painted painted paper orchids, some of these, because of the way the colours work. But it's a magical place as far as I'm concerned. I could spend ages here. It is the national collection, so these are what I call orchids. This is what I really like. The shape, the colours, the plants. It's not just the orchid blooms themselves, it's the plants. These are all on trays that are movable. They slide left and right to open up the aisles or shut them down depending on what work they're doing. And this, not this one, I'll get there in a minute. I love that one, it's gorgeous. I'm going to stop on this and have a chat. This particular plant was Odontoglossum crispum. It's now Oncidium alexandrae. And when this was found in South America, it was murdered basically. Whole areas of rainforest were stripped bare to get these orchids back to the UK. It was devastating what was done, quite honestly, and there was a knock-on effect, because once these plants were in the UK and they actually worked out how not to kill them, because in those days the mentality was geared up to, oh, it's an orchid, it must come from a hot steamy jungle. Yeah, well, there are high bits in hot steamy jungles that are not hot and steamy, they're cool. And these are cool growers. They come from higher up towards the cloud forests, and some of them are in the cloud forest, so they're cool growers. So they grew them wrong and killed thousands and thousands of them, given that they've come halfway across the world, and a lot of them died in transport. Just as an aside, have you ever heard of a Wardian case? It was this sort of thing that was developed for. Because if you're going to have a load of orchids and bring them across an ocean and get salt water on them, you're going to kill them. So that Wardian case was to protect the plants so that they could be transported across oceans. You can't travel across an ocean without getting salt spray, can you? So you can sort of understand it. But anyway, this is Odontoglossum crispum, and it is nothing like the ones you would now find in the wild. What's happened is they've been brought over to the UK and other parts of Europe, and possibly even other parts of the world, but they're in the main. And then line bred. And what line breeding does is you hybridize two species and get a load of seedlings. Wait for them to bloom and pick the best ones, and then cross those again. So you're only crossing the same species over and over, but because you pick the best ones, the next lot of seedlings that come out are more like the parents, which were the best ones. Yeah? And then you do it again. And it takes time. You know, you've got to bear in mind it's probably 4 years at least to get these up to blooming size from flask, you know, from seed. And it's no good cloning them, you'll just get the same as you had before. So it's got to be done through proper breeding, you know. And anyway, that's been done over the years to get plants like this, with really nice big blooms. And in amongst this particular species are quite a few variables, because some have got pink tinges, some have got more markings than this, some have got both, some are virtually all white, apart from the very centre. So they're variable. They've got their frilly edges to the petals, and they are an attractive bloom. But they've been line bred over the years, given that these started coming back to Europe in the 1850s, somewhere around then. So they've been at it a while. Whole areas of rainforest were stripped of this plant. They left none. Wiped them out in areas. That bad. This is our ancestors, not us. It was a long time ago. Your great-great-great-granddad was at it. Whatever. But anyway, I've stopped on this plant because of the story that goes with it. Because they stripped all the best plants out of those areas where it was found naturally, what was left were inferior plants, the ones they didn't want. and in the wild those line bred, because that's all that was left. So the ones you find in the wild now are inferior to what some of them would have been before they stripped the jungle of these plants. So that's the damage our ancestors have done. The species that are left, and there ain't many, those that are left are not a patch on what some of those plants would have been like when they were found and stripped out and mainly killed for quite a long time before they worked out how to bring them back. And then when they got them back here, they put them in hot houses. Stove houses they were called, you know, steam driven basically, and killed them by the thousands. Terrible what went on in those days. Conservation, never heard of it. We have now. Anyway, that's why I paused on this plant, because this is an example of what cultivated line breeding can achieve from the original, which is relatively small bloom in comparison, but an infinitely variable plant, and all the best ones were stripped out of the rainforests, leaving inferior plants, and that's all there was. So those line bred in their natural environment. So all these good ones that came over into cultivation, there's no examples of those left. They're gone. They were all stripped out. Luckily those days are gone. We have learnt our lesson. Anyway, carrying on, that's why I paused on this one. Odontoglossum crispum. And that particular species exists in many of these hybrids you're looking at. Many of them. It's there as a basis, even if it's only 5 or 10%, it's there. So it's all good stuff. And moving on to the next area, you can see from this basically a multitude of colours going on here. That peachy coloured one is quite unique, that one. I don't think I've ever seen an odont type that colour before. Well done getting that one. The others are, well, that's like mine at home. But yeah, multitude of colours and things, and constantly improving the ones they've got and constantly creating new ones. And it's not only the blooms they work on the quality of the plants, the sturdiness and the strength of the plants. All that is what is being worked on in this hybridization program, which we're looking at here. Basically, these are the results. So there's some pretty spectacular stuff in here, I must admit. I could spend hours in here. Absolutely hours, and I would have done if we hadn't got kicked out. It's a 2-hour stint. Oh, there's Lynn lurking away up in the background there. So yeah, we spent quite a long time there, and I mean, when you can only go somewhere once a year, it's quite important to get a good amount on video as far as I'm concerned, and I think I got a reasonable show for you good people to see, to show the sort of things that this place produces. So yeah, and quite honestly, these are probably my favourite orchids, the type you're looking at now. Probably. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. That's quite a lot of faffing around as far as putting that video together is concerned, but I think the place deserves the extra effort on my part to represent it as best as I can and tell you some of the background stories within, you know, what goes on in there. If you are capable of getting to this area, even if you have to travel and stop over, I would recommend that if you are keen on orchids, that you get there and have a look round and listen to Jim talking about his lifelong work, basically, because he worked in McBean's for donkey's years and then retired, and they dragged him out to the Mathers Foundation, and he seems to love every minute of it, I must admit. Yes, some people asked if I would film Jim's tour and Jim's talk. That's a no, basically. This is a private enterprise. It's not, you know, it's not open for profit or anything like that. It's a foundation, and any videos that are produced effectively are their property, and you may get to watch them, but that's as far as it goes, and it wouldn't be ethical, and I wouldn't want to do it either, to actually film Jim doing his talk, because it will be taking away some of the uniqueness and magic of actually being there by sticking it on YouTube. But I would seriously recommend, if you can get there, then try and do so if you're interested in orchids. You will enjoy it. The open days, I think they're February to the beginning of May, something like that. They're in that period, not all year round, simply because that's when the majority of the orchid types they grow are actually in bloom. Yeah? Otherwise you're just looking at a sea of green, aren't you? As we all know. And even parts of this nursery are a sea of green at certain times of year, and were, you know, on our visit on Saturday. So there you go, that's what this foundation is all about, the types of orchids. I haven't filmed all of the orchids or anywhere near it. With such a large volume of people there were areas I couldn't get to film, and whilst filming I've got to do my absolute utmost to not get any faces in there, because I'd be filming people without their permission in a private enterprise, and you don't do that, or I don't. Lynn won't mind. She runs her own YouTube, so her face is on YouTube anyway. Hannah will probably grump about it, but she's been in some of my videos in little clips before now. So, well, tough, she'll have to lump it. I'm not cutting those bits out. It was only a short bit anyway with Hannah in. We had a wonderful day, we had a wonderful time. I've been going for the last few years. I will go again next year and the year after, and I will probably go every year that they offer the open days, and I'm capable of doing so, because to me it's just a magical place to visit. And as I say, hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.